Good. We finally got some heat here. The other day it was 46 degrees when I woke up in the morning, which for the beginning of June is pretty darn cold. But the heat, all of a sudden the heat turned up, and so I was feeling pretty good.
All right. So, do we have a Sue's Corner this week, Dave?
We do. Absolutely, we do. So, Sue's Corner, the Madden NFL cover curse. For years, the Madden curse has loomed large over the iconic NFL video game franchise. Saquon Barkley has just been signed to be the newest cover. Has he now doomed himself and or the Eagles for the next season? Historically, this is how it has gone for the past 10 years. 2025, Christian McCaffrey, awarded with the Madden cover distinction after a career campaign that earned him Offensive Player of the Year honors. McCaffrey struggled with injuries in 2024. The San Francisco 49ers star played in just 4 games and was placed on injured reserve twice. Curse. No, that was 2025. 2024, Josh Allen, not so bad. Some good things and some bad things. 44 touchdowns on the ground and through the air. However, he threw a career-high 18 interceptions. 2023, John Madden was on the cover. Doesn't count. Was a memorial to him. 2022, it was Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. No curse. They both had a good season. 2021, Lamar Jackson had another outstanding year. No curse there. 2020, Mahomes again won the Super Bowl. No curse there. 2019, Antonio Brown played well, but his antics got him traded to the Raiders. Cursed. 2018, Tom Brady again lost the Super Bowl, but had a great season. Not cursed, but he didn't win the Super Bowl. 2017, Ron Gronkowski, the 5-time Pro Bowler, was coming off another double-digit touchdown season in 2016, but he missed virtually all of the Patriots' first 4 games with a hamstring injury, then finished with just 6 starts due to a herniated disc and other injury issues. Cursed. 2016, Odell Beckham had a great season, not cursed. Earlier players thought to get the curse were Sean Alexander, Bo would know him from Seattle, Vince Young, Brett Favre, Troy Polamalu, Drew Brees, and Peyton Hillis. Those who dodged it were Adrian Peterson, Richard Sherman, and Calvin Johnson. So it's about an even split. Using year-by-year decisions, 14 of the 24 cover athletes, or 58%, from 2021 to 2024 have been cursed. But just 3 of the 10 cover athletes, or 30%, from the last 10 years, 2015 to 2025, have been cursed. There also haven't been back-to-back curses since 2011, 2012. So is the Madden curse alive? Maybe. But it may well be losing its power. We'll see how Saquon and the Eagles do make out in 2025. Yeah, this year. So that's Sue's Corner. That was it. I hadn't paid attention to the Madden curse for a while.
Well, I hadn't really paid that much attention to it till after Lamar, and then of course Christian. But I play a lot of fantasy football, so that therefore, it's probably much more easier for me to keep up with that than you would. But yeah, it's the Madden curse. It's a lot of money either way, but it should be interesting. Yeah, I remember uh, it was one of those games that I was never really good at. I could watch everybody else, but up downs. You know, a little too much manual dexterity there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't played it in a lot. I used to play it, but I haven't played in years. So my
Well,
problem with those types of games, like if I get into something like Madden, I'll be on it so much I won't be doing anything else. So for me, it's better just stay away because once I'm on it, I can't get off of it.
yeah, yeah. That's another thing too. If you have one of those type of addictive personalities, I went through that with the poker phase. Uh, you know, uh, once you get on, you know. So yeah, I do understand that. But there were a couple of things that I was going to talk about real quick before we have Jeffrey come in and talk a little college football. I mean, well, college football too. Um, because I was thinking of some of the very uh, ironic things that happen in sports. For instance, we have Tom Thibodeau. He takes the Knicks to their first Eastern Finals in a quarter of a century, and he gets fired.
I don't understand that. I don't follow the NBA too much, but I heard that story, and it's like, why would you, unless there's something outside, unless there's another factor,
Well,
but
I think that the fact that this is the first time now that we have two Gen Z teams in the finals, without having that older veteran presence, that everybody thought that was, you needed a LeBron or you needed a Giannis or, uh, these two teams have shown now, that, these young guys are coming into their own. So I think that they're more afraid of the age disconnect. But actually, I think what it really came down to is one of those decisions where you can't fire the players. So you have to, somebody has to be the scapegoat. And, it's not that he didn't get paid well, but, you think, like, what's more important, do you it, I think it's another one of those cases where we can see the differences in generations. Uh, they where uh, loyalty doesn't matter anymore. It's more the end result.
yeah, well, yeah, I just find it odd. You take them to the finals. It's their most successful season in a really long time, and then it's like, well, now it's not good enough. Why not fire him last year? And but it's like back in the day, I'm going way back, even before I was born, like in football, they would churn through coaches all the time. And coaches would quit like right before the season and all kinds of crazy things. But the difference back then, and I'm sure it was for all of professional sports, is that the coaches weren't paid like they're paid today. And the players certainly weren't paid uh, like they're paid today. And I just wonder if that doesn't have an impact, because now you have to make decisions based on revenue.
But in
They're,
basketball,
they're revenue impact decisions.
basketball is not like football. Basketball, if you sign a guy, you have to pay a guy. You can't,
They have
because you
guaranteed contracts.
right. You can't fire a guy because necessarily if you sign him to a 4-year contract and you fire him at the end of 3, you still have to pay him for that fourth.
Oh yeah, well, because players have a lot more control now than back in the day. Back in the day, the players didn't have any control. And so, like, for example, and I'm going way back in the early '60s. Johnny Sample ticked off Buddy Parker, and he got hurt, and then he was benched, and then he was going to be signed by another team, and Pittsburgh wasn't playing him, but they had rights to him. And so what Buddy Parker did is he just exercised those rights so that the other team couldn't trade for him, and then sat him down.
Yeah.
And you can't do that today. With the free agency rules and all this kind of stuff. So the players, and I think it's a good thing, is the players have a lot more control over their futures than they did. Some would argue it's still not enough, but it's much better than it was back in the days. And so maybe the calculation with this Knicks coach is, okay, well, the players we got to deal with, but we don't have to deal with you.
Yeah. Well,
And
like I said, we'll see how this is, how this works out. Are you cutting off your nose? As Grandma used to say, are you cutting off your nose to spite your face? So
yeah,
we'll see how that works out. Dave, it seems my man Scanes lost another close one. Was it another 1-0 game, or what was?
it's crazy because he has, I think, in the last 10 games or something, he has like a 2.05 ERA, and he has a losing record in those games, and he's like 4-6.
With a two? Would you say a 2.05 ERA?
Yeah, in the last 10 games. So I mean, he's really he's doing unbelievable. The other thing is in 12 starts, he's had 85 strikeouts, and opponents have a batting average of 187. And he still has a losing record. That's insane. That's how bad the Pirates are. And so I mean, for me, I think the three things that have to happen is, number one is, if they want to do anything this season, the problem is the owner. But one is they need to trade for a bat. They need to make a trade so that they can find somebody that can put some runs, give some run support to Scanes and to the other pitchers. And then the second thing is they've had 12 blown saves. So in other words, they've gone into the end of the game ahead, winning. And the relief pitchers have given up 12 games that they could have saved, those turned into losses. And so, Dave Bednar, I saw him pitch a couple weeks ago, and he's not the same guy that he was a couple seasons ago. But they need to do something with their bullpen to strengthen it. And then the third thing is they're just making basic mistakes, defensive miscues, base running errors. The game I saw, the outfielder muffed a catch, so that was one possible out, and then he had to throw to second that he missed, and then that was on one play. It was like two misses, and then that player eventually scored the go-ahead run that won the game for the other team. So the Pirates are they have a couple pitchers, they got some guys that have had some good games, but consistently they're lacking effective coaching, which would help correct some of these defensive and base running errors. And so they need some better field coaches. They need somebody to strengthen the bullpen, and then they really need to make a trade for a consistent bat to help Skanes out. So, but none of that's going to happen with the way, based on Nutting's previous performance as an owner. But if they want to do anything to save this season, they did fire the manager before, but that's not. There's deeper underlying issues with that team.
Yeah. So, good evening, Jeffrey. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good tonight. Glad to be on.
All right. I see Bill has joined us. How you doing, Bill?
It's been a very, very, very busy day, but I'm glad to be here as well and to be with the best, the absolute best. If you want to talk ACC sports, at Talking ACC Sports, the one, the only Jeffrey Jeff Fan, one of my favorites.
I don't know if it's me, but you might want to check which mic you're using, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He sounded really muffled to me.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah. He's back with the string and the beer can again. So Jeffrey, how's things going with you down there?
Yeah, actually for the ACC, before we get too deep into previewing football, it's been a pretty strong NCAA baseball tournament for the ACC. I think it's pretty fair to say that they've been the best performing conference of anyone this season. They had 9 teams in the tournament, and 5 of them have reached the super regionals, which is the most of anyone in the country.
Yeah, by far, I think.
Yeah, and under any scenario, they're going to have at least one team reach the College World Series because Louisville and Miami face off. You have Duke reaching the Super Regional is going to play Murray State, who kind of shocked the world, beating Ole Miss. North Carolina put away Oklahoma. They're in the Super Regionals. Florida State is going to Oregon State in Corvallis, and they've got a great chance to reach the College World Series. I think that's your 5: Louisville, Miami, Duke, Florida State, and North Carolina. So we'll see if they can keep going with that performance and maybe bring a national title back to one of those ACC schools. But great baseball tournament so far for the conference.
Okay. Yeah. I know usually we hear about Texas and Oklahoma and all those guys. I did hear about the Oklahoma upset, but I didn't know that it had been to that extent. But Jeffrey, we have the college football playoff committee. We have one that wants the 5+11 model. Which draws interest from the SEC coaches. And then we had the ACC. Should they support a 14-game playoff proposal now, Jeffrey?
Yeah, it looks like the two prevailing models that I've seen, I know there was some discussion of the 14 team model, but I think the ACC has gotten behind the 5+11 model, and right now they're I think Big 12, ACC are in the camp of favoring the 5 and 11. The Big Ten is definitely the 4-4, 2-2, 3-1, and I think the SEC, like you said, with their coaches pushing for the 5+11, uh, appears to be kind of the deciding vote on this whole thing. From the ACC perspective, there are people, out there in the media that says, "Hey, the ACC and the Big 12 should just, take what's offered. Two AQ bids, just take it because, there can be years if you go with the other one, um, you might only get one bid, and that's there's some that have that prevailing thought. Um, I think from the perspective of the Big 12 and the ACC, um, everybody knows that if there's 11 at-large bids, the SEC is going to end up with a bunch of them. That's not a question. They're probably going to have 5, 6, maybe even 7 bids in a given year. Uh, but when you at least have that format, it can give you at least the illusion of equity. And that's
Yeah.
actually really important between the 4 power conferences with everything, P2 this, power 2 this, you know, everything going in that direction. If you can at least even give that illusion that they're all equal by doing this, that's a perception thing, and that matters. If you go with that 4-4-2-2, you're never coming back from that. At least when you have the AQ bids, you could argue that maybe the Big 12 and the ACC do have, a year where they might have 3 or 4 teams in the top 16. But if you do the AQ bids, you have put your stamp that these conferences, and even if they really truly are, but you're putting it in writing that they're absolutely different, that 2 are above the other ones. So I feel like it's more of a perception thing. um, but also, you're betting on yourself, and then I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I mean, I'm definitely against, even if there was a format that gave there was one format being proposed of a 4-4-3-2 where the ACC had 3 AQ bids, and okay, that one was kind of shot down. But just kind of with the nature of sports, I really don't want to see, even for the ACC to have that many AQ bids. In another sport, we were just talking baseball. The ACC's been the second best baseball um, conference for the past 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
I would not expect them to get multiple bids into the super regionals or anything like that. It just goes against the entire nature of sport to me.
Tie
Um,
competitive, yes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, how can you set up a system where that many automatic, bids, especially when you look at the Big Ten? I mean, there could be a year where they only have 2 really good teams, or maybe 3. A Penn State, Ohio State, and a Michigan. Well, now they got Oregon, but I mean, there could be a year where they don't have really a good fourth team, and you automatically reward them. But so, I mean, in the end, the ACC is definitely pushing, and I personally would like to see that 5+11 format go through. And I guess it's all coming down to the SEC, which um, seems to be they're moving in that direction a little bit. That SEC Big Ten alliance that they kept talking about, they got on different pages pretty fast. When the 2 biggest bullies in the neighborhood are out there, they're gonna butt heads, and I think it came sooner than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, I would definitely say that would be true. Jeffrey, do we have any ACC coaches on the hot seat?
Yeah, there are a couple out there that are they're in the hot seat, and one of them is Justin Wilcox at California. He's been out there for a while, and Cal had some nice moments last year. They won at Auburn. They had game day in California. I think it was actually voted the number one game day um, scene of the entire season or something on ESPN. But I mean, they had a great crowd, and they led Miami late, and then the wheels just kind of came off, and turned into another kind of mediocre season for them. He's been there a long time, and I think another kind of 500 type season will end up being his last at California, unless they have a big season. A couple other coaches, and they're both from the state of Virginia. Actually, it's Brent Pry at Virginia Tech and Tony Elliott at Virginia. Um, Tony Elliott, by all accounts, has been he's been a great like leader of men there at Virginia. He's well liked, but at the end of the day, he's there to win football games. And last year they had some good moments, but he just hasn't turned the program, into like a perennial bowl team. And I think that's going to be the goal for him and Brent Pry. Virginia Tech athletics under Whit Babcock. If you talk to Virginia Tech fans, I mean, they're really frustrated across the board with their athletic department and Whit Babcock, and how they've instituted NIL, and not just in football,
Yep.
in basketball as well. They lost their women's basketball coach to Kentucky, who was very successful, and maybe not all of it's been Brent Pry's fault, but the Virginia Tech football program is a shell of what we kind of remember, with the Michael Vick days, and through the Frank Beamer, all the way through the early 2000s when they were winning. They were the dominant team in the ACC, till about 2009, 2010. Um, Maybe a little earlier than that, about 2008 or so. But you get the idea. They were one of the premier programs in all of college football, and they've really, struggled to find a consistent winner as a head coach since Beamer left, and Brent Pry has just not been able to turn the corner. He's also on the hot seat. It could very well be when Virginia and Virginia Tech meet at the end of the season that the losing coach could be out of a job.
Hmm.
Okay. What about your preseason rankings there, Jeff? Especially now we have, the big guy there at UNC.
Yeah, absolutely. Most ACC projections have Clemson, at the top going into the season. They've got as much hype under for the program as they've had since Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback at Clemson. So we're going back 5 or 6 years where Clemson's been decent, but they've definitely fallen off the elite football program map. Just to be a good program, but not where they definitely were, and they're really looking at that as this season as an opportunity for Clemson to get back. They have Clay Klubnik as a returning quarterback, who's considered one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country, potential first, second round pick. Um, they've got a ton of wide receiver talent, probably the most they've had in 5 or 6 years, definitely since the national championship days. The defense is absolutely loaded. This might be their most talented defensive line with Tony Parker and the Woods, Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, since the Christian Wilkins 2018 defensive line that had four future NFL players on that front. And, everyone remembers how they absolutely shut down Tua Tagovailoa in that wipeout of Alabama, the worst loss Nick Saban took in his Alabama time at Alabama. Many people consider this as a talented team, especially defensively, since that group. So, I mean, Clemson is definitely the odds-on favorite, but you look at some of the other contenders. Mario Cristobal at Miami, he's done a fantastic job in the transfer portal. He got Carson Beck, the Georgia quarterback, a year after getting Cam Ward, and you know, with Miami, it's not an issue of really having talent. It's Cristobal being able to get consistent performances, out of that team, and I thought they had overcome it after that start. They're 9-0, and they go to Atlanta last year and they lose to Georgia Tech, um, who you know was playing with a backup quarterback most of that game, and then they go on the road a couple weeks later, still with the playoffs in sight. And they lose at Syracuse to knock them out of the playoffs. I mean, they were right there to be a third ACC team in the playoffs, and that just seems to, as successful as that season was last year. Being ranked in the top 5 or 6, top 10 most of the season. It still left Miami fans saying, when is Cristobal going to put a full season together? And I think there is talent there at Miami, but they're a little bit behind Clemson. But if you're looking at 1 and 2, those are your 1 and 2 teams. A lot of people are high on SMU. They have the quarterback Kevin Jennings, who played so well last year when he was named the starting quarterback um, early in the season. I mean, he made SMU and a really solid team, all the way through the season. Now, he kind of had a nightmare game against Penn State uh, in the playoffs, and that's probably been burning them all season. But SMU has a chance to be still be a contender. And then you look like further down the line. You look at Georgia Tech, who is I think they're one of 2 teams in the country that have a top 10 quarterback and a top 10 running back, with Haynes King, who's coming off a bum shoulder. But when he's right, we saw what he did against Georgia last year. I mean, he eviscerated that SEC champion defense, had over 400 yards of total offense, and that Georgia defense was helpless. And that doesn't happen to Kirby Smart coach defenses. And then they were absolutely shredded by Haynes King. And they also have the running back Jamal Haynes, who's considered one of the 10 best running backs in the country. Brent Key has rebuilt that program back to respectability from the Jeff Collins era, and now a lot of people are looking for Georgia Tech to take that next step, to get past respectability and really put something special together over the course of the season. For Georgia Tech, it's going to depend on their defense. I mean, they've got players on offense; they're going to be able to move the football, but can they get enough consistent defense to really challenge for the top of the ACC? But they're going to be a dark horse. And then you talked about North Carolina with Bill Belichick coming back. I mean, if the one thing it's definitely done is there's been a ton of exposure for the North Carolina football program, and ACC football. I mean, they moved their game against TCU to a Labor Day night, so they want Bill Belichick on TV. It's kind of a question, about the girlfriend thing that's been all over the news. Who's really running the
Talk about
football
exposure,
program
right?
there? Yeah, uh, that's not the kind of exposure that you want when you think about Belichick. He ran the Patriots as one of the tightest, football teams anywhere in the country, college or pros, and it's a little bit of a weird start at North Carolina. But of course, if you start winning games, nobody's going to care. Um, but it's definitely an intriguing story, that if he starts winning some games early, he's got the TCU early. They got Clemson coming, I think, in late September, early October, and you expect that one to be a big time game. So that one's really really intriguing there. I think you're wondering probably how Florida State is going to look, after the disastrous season last year, where in a 17-team league they were the worst team in the conference. Um, you were talking about hot seat coaches. I mean, 2 years removed from going undefeated in the regular season. I mean, if Norvell doesn't, have a quality season, And I mean, it's going to have to be more than just 500. I mean, they need to probably be looking at 7 or 8 wins at least. He could find himself on the hot seat because, you're coaching at Florida State. You're expected to compete for ACC titles and playoff spots. You're not being looked on, to be at the bottom of the ACC, and it wasn't like the ACC. If we're being honest, it wasn't like a number 1 or number 2 football league. It was, pretty average across the board, not terrible, but Florida State finishing dead last. That got a lot of Florida State fans definitely are looking for Norvell and the Seminoles to show some positive growth this year. And they got the quarterback from Boston College, Castellanos, who was a talented kind of dual threat quarterback. I mean, I think they'll be upgraded at quarterback after DJ Uiagalelei, who just never panned out anywhere he went really. So I do expect Florida State to be better, but I just don't think they can turn it around that quickly to compete with Miami and Clemson for one of those spots in Charlotte.
Dave, you got any questions for Jeffrey?
Well, I didn't hear you mention Pitt. What do you think's happening with Pitt? I know that the coach was kind of trying to goad Penn State into a series. I don't think he was successful with that. But what's going on with Pitt down there with the ACC?
Yeah, Pitt's an interesting team in the ACC because they had such a strange season last year. I mean, they started out the year 7-0, and then there were whispers of them, getting to Charlotte, competing for an ACC title. There's playoffs, and then they go down to SMU, just get wiped away, and then the season just completely collapsed from Pat Narduzzi. They end up going, I think end up 7-6, didn't win another game the rest of the season, and it was an absolute train wreck the rest of the year. I mean, we're just a couple of years removed from Pitt, being at the top of the ACC. They won an ACC title, for like a 3-year span. They had as many NFL players drafted as Clemson did. I think they might even had more. They got a good young quarterback. Should be back, the Holstein kid.
Transfer.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect, honestly, out of Pitt after what we saw last year. I mean, they looked great for a month and a half, almost 2 months, and then just completely, fall off the map. And that's kind of Pittsburgh's, MO for the last 25 or 30 years. You don't really know what to expect with them. They usually, win 7 or 8 games, winning some games they shouldn't, some that they shouldn't lose. And I kind of thought that Narduzzi had gotten over that hump after winning the ACC and then having another top 25 season after that. And then you have, what happened last year following another poor season from the year before. So I don't think he's quite on the hot seat, but another mediocre season, and that would be 3 in a row for Narduzzi, and I think that ACC title gets way back in the rearview mirror. I don't feel like they have the horses to really compete for an ACC championship. But the way they play football, tough, hard nosed. I mean, I think they can finish in the upper half.
Yeah, and then the other question I had, I appreciate that. And the other question I have is going back to the CFP models. So, like, if they go to the and the devil's always in the details, but in the CFP 5+11 model, it would seem those 11 at large bids. Well, if you finish in the top 16, you're probably going to get a bid, if you win your conference or not. So with the ACC over the next several years, how many teams do you think that they'll have, over the next, say, between this season and the next 2 seasons after that, How many teams will they have finishing in the top 16?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think in most years, um, you know, I think Clemson is going to be a perennial top 16 team. I think we've seen Dabo Sweeney. He's starting to selectively um, embrace the transfer portal. He's starting to fill some holes with that way. He's never going to, take a 20 players through the portal, but he's not against it in the way he was like 3 or 4 years ago, and they're still recruiting really well at Clemson. So if you say that there's one there, I think in most years the ACC is going to have a second team in the top 16. Even in some of the recent years, where the rest of the conference might have been pretty bad, they usually did have at least one other team be in the top 16. So I think in most years you're going to have two anyways, which is it probably will match what they said on the AQ. And I think from time to time, uh, you will see a third team sneak in there. I think it'll be pretty rare if it's only one. So I feel like in most years you're going to have a couple of ACC teams in the playoffs. Like last year, they would have had three teams. I don't know if you can squeeze in more than that. It's going to take a collective upgrade of the conference across the board to get four, and they're going to have to win. I mean, they get plenty of strong non-conference games during the course of the year. They play Notre Dame. There's usually quite a few matchups with the SEC, so they have their opportunities. But I don't know. I think getting four anytime in the next 2 or 3 years is a real stretch. I feel like
So,
we're
two to three then is what you're saying.
yeah. I feel like two. You're going to see at least two, and you might get three in one of the next 2 or 3 years.
Good evening, Mr. Scott. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, gentlemen, great. Glad to get the opportunity to join you.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a coincidence that you missed our NBA questions or not, but that's okay. So,
Well, yeah, of course, I missed the NBA. That's too bad because I didn't go. People thought I'd go full blown Demetrius, like he did with the Lions. They thought that I was just going to see. He made a fool of himself because he just continued. He just loved the Lions. It was a done deal. No, I didn't fall for that. I knew they had an arduous. I mean, they beat the Lakers, who, the Lakers were the Lakers. I mean, really had no backup, had no inside. They, beat Golden State. Steph was hurt. Got her. So I mean, they kind of waltzed in. So and Julius Randle, he became Julius Randle at the end. So
well, let's finish with our guests here, and then we'll
sure.
get back to that. Bill, do you have any questions for Jeffrey?
I most certainly do. So I think the ACC is going to have probably 3, maybe 4 players who are going to go in the top 50 to 60 picks of the 2026 draft based on the board I'm putting together. Based on your work, and once again, I'm asking you to sort of figure out where they'll go in the draft because that's way off in the future. But who are some of the players you think? You mentioned Klubnik, obviously, and Haynes, right? Who are some of the players you think will be some of the most prized pro prospects in the conference?
Well, I definitely think some of the Clemson defensive players.
Right.
I mean, this is looking like 2016, 2017, 2018 Clemson. Um, you know, I think they only had maybe 3 players drafted last year, but I think this upcoming year we're going to get back to seeing Clemson having 3, 4, maybe 5 players drafted in the first and second round. So you're looking at the Parker in the Woods being potential, definitely be potential high picks. Klubnik, I've seen him, maybe in the first round. Think Carson Beck there at Miami has a chance to be a high draft pick. With Haynes King, as good as he is as a runner and a passer, he's got a little bit of a history of a shoulder.
Injuries,
Yeah. It happened at Texas A&M. It happened at Georgia Tech last year. Um, he'd have to stay healthy for the entire year. I mean, I don't quite see him as a first round pick, but if he could stay healthy, I mean, someone could take a chance on him. Later in the draft, we talked about Jamal Haynes at Georgia Tech. He's an intriguing prospect because he's got some ability to catch the ball, and he's a really productive running back. But he's probably not a day one or draft pick, but he's someone to definitely keep an eye on. Kind of taking a look at the list of some of the other players that we got here in the ACC, who could be like a really high draft pick. Um, yeah, I mean, really, I would say it's being dominated of the high draft picks are the guys coming out of Clemson. I mean, this is a really talented team,
Yep.
and that's who I'm looking at, especially with the ACC when you're looking at top draft picks for next year, day one type things. I mean, take a look up and down that Clemson roster because they got 3 or 4 that you're going to see probably go on day one or latest day two.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, hey, Jeffrey, as always, thank you so much for your time. Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening? Tell us, what's coming up for the ACC. Are you going to have a basketball, baseball champion? What's happening?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy college baseball, and I mean I was this opening weekend of college baseball, not just from ACC's perspective, but the games were riveting. I actually felt it was better than the opening weekend of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. They were upsets across the board. You had your blue blood programs moving on, but then you had your Cinderella stories, and I mean you get an ace pitcher out there, and you can steal a game or two, and then you don't know what happens um, the rest of the way. So it was pretty riveting stuff, I have to say. So I'm going to be watching that this upcoming weekend, especially with so many ACC teams, and we'll see how that goes. So before I fully turn the attention to football, I'll be taking in some of the baseball, and definitely that's a couple more weeks, but then turn full attention to football and football previews. I mean, the opening weekend, the ACC has its chance to make a statement on a national stage on opening weekend. I mean, you got Georgia Tech; they're going to Colorado. I know Colorado, they lost 2 first-round picks, but they still have Deion Sanders, who's made that program better. And when you play Colorado, there's eyeballs on the game. So that's an opportunity big time for Georgia Tech to do something early in the season. Clemson hosting LSU. Uh, you're talking about Klubnik being one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country. LSU's got a great one too, and Nussmeier. I mean, you might not see a better quarterback matchup in college football the entire season. That one's prime time in Death Valley. That's a statement opportunity game for Clemson. You got Miami playing Notre Dame. If Miami wants to, make themselves have an early season statement, um, Carson Beck and Cristobal, I mean, they got an opportunity against Notre Dame. I think that game's on that Sunday night. I mean, those are 3 of your games. You got TCU and North Carolina. We talked about that in Belichick's first game. South Carolina playing Virginia Tech. Um, Opening weekend, probably Virginia Tech's probably going to be a little overmatched in that game, I have to say. But still, it's an opportunity to pull an upset. And you got Florida State playing Alabama. I don't think too many people would expect Florida State. To really have a chance to beat Alabama. But if they're competitive in that game, it might say, hey, this is a different Florida State team than we saw last year. So I mean, that opening weekend is going to be a big opportunity for for the AC. They can't say they didn't have opportunities. That's for sure. I mean, if they have some kind of strange playoff result and you do end up with one ACC team and the conference went 0-5 or 6 or whatever the opening weekend, with all of those chances to beat some programs that could catch people's attention, you got no one to blame but yourself, because they'll have their chances. So that I'm looking forward to that opening weekend. That's for sure.
All right,
Yeah,
Jeff.
yeah, you can find me at Talking ACC Sports, and a blogging at allsportsdiscussion.com, doing our ACC team previews. As always, enjoy being on the show and talking with everybody. Good
How long
stuff.
you
Good
been?
chat with you, Jeff.
How long you been here, Jeff? It's about time for anniversary, isn't
Whew, I don't know. I think maybe 7 or 8 years.
it? Hey,
It's going back
always
a while.
time always passes when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Enjoyed
Jeff.
it.
Thank you so much. You have a great night. So, Mr. Scott, how have things been up there, up north there?
Oh, well, things are going quite well. It's been very busy as our documentary from the Scott Collection, our nonprofit. The documentary is going to be premiered Saturday at a theater in North Minneapolis. It's called the Capri, which is kind of a historic in that was the place that Prince gave his first concert after he signed with Warner Brothers. So it's we're excited about doing that. And then on the other tip, my good buddy, as I've talked to Bill about, we've had a debate about this, about Jim Marshall in the Hall of Fame. And,
Yeah, but
my
don't
good
get ahead
friend,
now because I'm gonna
oh,
ask you
okay.
about that.
All right.
I want you to talk. I got a special section just for you, so don't get too far ahead
All right. But other than that, things are well up. Things are well up here. Things going, well, it's gone well. We had some kind of big incident, something they thought ICE had come into Minnesota, and there's a bunch of people rioting and yesterday. But I mean, that's for another day. So
now. Yeah. We've had our little incidents here in San Diego too, but
yeah.
like you say, that's a different program altogether. So let's talk a little bit about our football. Here, get into the NFL, and you mentioned Jim Marshall, but we also had another passing, which was the passing of Jim Irsay. You want to start with your recollections of Mr. Irsay there, Dave?
Well, I mean, he's kind of an interesting guy, and sorry, feels kind of weird because we were only 2 or 3 years apart, and to have somebody like that gone. But you look at this guy, and he put Indianapolis on the map. As far as football is concerned, NFL football, and they had moved there from Baltimore, and I think he took charge. I think around '97. But he was the guy behind drafting Peyton Manning. He was the guy behind hiring Bill Polian, and he kind of put Indianapolis on the map. And I think part of his, he had some troubles there at the end. But when you look at the people around him, and I look at the players, what do they feel about the guy? And something that Bruce Arians said, not a player, but one of his coaches, but he said, if you were on the Colts, you were a member of his family. Kind of reminds me of like the Steelers. And it sounds like that there was a lot of players that kind of rallied around him. And if they hated him or if they didn't like him, they would just be quiet. They wouldn't say much. And so I think that Jim Irsay, I mean, and as an owner, he led the charge in getting Dan Snyder removed among the owners. He was like one of the first owners to kind of speak out against Dan Snyder. And that was a very dysfunctional organization. For one owner to turn on another owner and say, hey, it's time for you to go is pretty big. So I think that one, more than just putting Indianapolis on the map, I guess he gave the owners some leadership in terms of having some rectitude on what they were looking for. And hey, he had some issues, some substance issues. He had an arrest. He had different things happen to him. But I look at how the players have rallied around him. Pat McAfee, Peyton Manning, a number of different players have come out to say that he was really a good owner to play for. And so if I would think that that's something that he would appreciate as part of his legacy.
Bill.
Well, I think everybody has at some point weighed in. You if you watched Reggie Wayne breaking down, talking about him, he was similar in some ways to like DeBartolo, right? And he remembered players' birthdays. He remembered the names of their mothers. He really connected and believed that the players were, the heart and soul of the organization. And of course, he really cared about the fans as well. So, yes, he had, as mentioned, substance abuse issues. Got off some rather unfortunate tweets about Sarah Palin and her feet. But through all of that, right, he was maybe the most vulnerable NFL owner ever, right? I mean, how many NFL owners discussed their struggles? How many NFL owners supported charities that dealt with, mental illness and suicide prevention and talked about supporting those things openly? So he certainly lived a very different kind of lifestyle from any other NFL owner I'm ever aware of. But the things that I'll remember about him, one, of course, is him being by his father's side as they, the move from Baltimore, and I think he learned from that. I think, and he and his father were very different people in several ways, but I think he wanted to deeply weave and dig into the community, right? And he did a great job. He might have been great in everything, but he did a great job of taking the culture of Indianapolis, which had not been super football centered, right, when they first get there. Not to say that they weren't an NFL city. I mean, they had enough fans of the NFL, obviously, to support a team, but it wasn't a place where people were known to be living and dying with football. Indiana as a whole was thought of as a basketball state. There's a reason that the ultimate basketball movie of all time is named Hoosiers, right? And if you go to Indianapolis now, and I was there, just a few months ago, it is a football city first, right? The Pacers are obviously, a close number two, a very close number two, especially since they're such a, well-run franchise. But in terms of affecting the mood of the city, a win by the Colts, particularly a big win by the Colts, has more impact across all demographics than does even a playoff win, right? Even a playoff series win by the Pacers. So it is differences in orders of magnitude, though, like I said, I would say it is a basketball state. Clearly, it is maybe the basketball state in our nation. I mean, New York would, of course, punch you in the face for suggesting that. But the difference is that that's basically the 5 boroughs in the surrounding area, right? And you have good basketball in other parts of the state, Buffalo and other parts of the state, but it's not truly a basketball state. It's a basketball metropolitan area. In the case of Indiana, it's a basketball state, and Indianapolis has now become a football town. Where, like I said, Indianapolis proper, I think football is now number one, and Irsay has a big say in that.
Mr. Scott, any memories of Jim Irsay or the coach?
The only thing, and Bill, which I'm certainly not surprised he brought that up, taking back the history, this clandestine, I don't know, his involvement, the family's involvement with this clandestine move from Baltimore, which at the time, Baltimore, Lenny Moore, that was my place. And it's like they moved at the end of the cover of darkness.
Right.
It's like they backed up trucks, they backed up everything. And then when the day came, they were gone. And,
Yep.
and thinking if that happened to the Minnesota Vikings back in those days, that's something that I just continue to think of that move, and then until Baltimore was able to, reestablish themselves in the league. But I guess that's one of the memories I have, just from the standpoint of, a team leaving that under those kind of circumstances. You go to bed one night and you wake up the next day. My old lady's gone. What happened? My stuff is out in the driveway. So it was just kind of struck me as one of those type of, interesting situations.
Well, Mr. Scott, I'm gonna let you talk here about your guy. We had Jim Marshall pass away at the age of 87. He played, what was it, 270 consecutive games in the NFL. Uh, Probably best known for his running the wrong way, but Mr. Scott, will he finally get in the Hall of Fame now?
Well, will Pete Rose get in?
Well,
Come on. After these people,
they just pardoned Pete Rose. He
yeah,
told you
right. But
that.
he's not in, and he didn't get in his lifetime. And this is my statement on Jim. If you had talked to any, Carl Eller, Alan Page, Bud Grant, Chuck Foreman, everybody says that this is a travesty for a play. People like, Mick Tingeloff played a long time, Ed White played a long time, Paul Krause. But for him to not get in, it's just like one of my good friends who had played in the NFL, Reggie Berry, played Minneapolis Central here. He ended up in San Diego, worked for the league. He just said there shouldn't be a Hall of Fame if he's not in it. And I just think that, with the Iron Man, and you think of all those Sundays they played up here in Minnesota in below zero weather. And you think of all of the things that, he came out of, he was with Cleveland, went to Canada for a year or so, and ended up right at the beginning with the Minnesota Vikings and started every game until he left. And I'm talking about with major injuries, with broken bones, but still started every game. So I just think it's a travesty. And I've told many people about this over the years. One of my good friends, we used to go back and forth about it. And he said, well, at the end, he was just a scarecrow. He was a scarecrow. And I said, well, when you play 20 years, in the last few years, maybe you're not quite where you were, but he was a very integral part of that. One of the most famous defensive lines, at least in my time in football. And for him not to, his teammates, everybody's really kind of sad about that. And I didn't know he had been ill for a while. And I knew him just from when I went to Mankato as a freshman to play football down there. And the Vikings trained there in the summertime. And you could go throw the ball with them. You could go to the practices. They lived in the dorm with us. And they ate with us in the dorm at Gage Center. And, then he had an apartment right from the old Met Stadium where they had a party room. And he'd invite us to the parties. We would come up to the parties after the game and stuff. So I feel personally sad about it. Because I think that was something, and the Hall of Fame thing now really it's politicized in a lot of ways. When you think of the people that aren't in it, we have a guy on the Twins now, Cody Clemens, and his father is Roger Clemens. And this guy battled in the minor leagues. He's 28 years old. And I can just imagine how he went to teams where maybe people just didn't like Roger. They thought, wait a minute, we're not going to give him a chance because he's Roger's son. But he kept on in the minors, and now he seems to be making a little mark with the Twins. So Roger Clemens is not a Hall of Famer? I mean, it's when you look at it that way, to me, it just becomes kind of politicized until you look at the people who aren't in it that should be in it and the people that are in it that don't match them. So that's just an opinion. As the great Denny Green said, that's the great thing about America. Everybody has an opinion, and the great thing is you don't have to listen to it. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, Mr. Scott, you always accuse us here of ganging up on you. So tonight I'm not going to make it any different because I'm going to ask you a question, especially since this year we have to play each other. We have to make it up because I want you to tell me who you think is going to have the best record, the AFC North or the NFC North, Mr. Scott?
Well, that's as usual, James. That's not the kind of question you would just throw. All of a sudden you're going to throw a fastball on somebody. When they're waiting for. I think that the NFC Central is still the best division in football, and so I'm going to stick to that. I mean, I'm not, like I say, I'm not going to go full blown Demetrius, make a fool of myself, But I think they're the. What I'm seeing, J.J. McCarthy, they're starting to rave about him, that he's healthy, that he's been attending the games with Jefferson, and they're tight, working together early in camp. Or not even in camp yet, but just early on a personal level, trying to get with each other. So I
got some questions for you about that too.
Yeah, so I think the NFC North is the best division.
Okay. So now, head up. What about who do you think is going to have the best record this year? The Giants. I mean, excuse me. Where am I here? The Giants or the Bears?
That's another. I don't think much of the Giants. I mean, I have to see something, for them to really, show me something. I mean, the Bears, they're going to be, they're going to be tough in the division. I think that quarterback is a year under his belt. I think they had a good draft. I think, I think the Bears will do better. It's my opinion.
Dave, what do you think? AFC North or NFC North?
Well, I'll answer that in a second. I just wanted to just take a step back to Jim Marshall. Whenever I saw that question, I kind of looked at some of his statistics. And there's the 270 game, I think 270 game starts in a row. But then, they have sacks, and sacks really didn't begin officially recorded until like 1982. But Pro Football Reference went back to 1960. And, you could, based on the statistics kept, you could kind of extrapolate the sacks. And so with the unofficial sack totals, Marshall has 130.5 sacks that he's credited with, along with 30 forced fumbles. And in the NFL, there's only there's a number of players that have more than 130 and a half sacks, but only 4 of those players are not in the Hall of Fame. and one of them is Terrell Suggs, who's just become eligible, right? He's just become eligible. So really, when you look at it, he's in pretty rarefied air. And so, and a lot of people, they look at the I went back to that game where it was against the 49ers, where he scored the safety.
And he got another fumble and they won the game.
Well, that's what I was about to say is he forced a fumble in that game that he redeemed himself by forcing a fumble that locked the victory for the Vikings.
Yeah.
So that gets overlooked in that. And so, a lot of people look at that one play, but I would say there's a good argument for him to go to the Hall of Fame. What the problem is okay, he only had 3 or 4 Pro Bowls or something like this. That's what they look at. But
but when you got Carl Eller and Alan Page, you can't put them all in there.
Exactly. That's where it's at. Now, to the other question, I think the AFC North and the NFC North, I think what it comes down to is that the NFC North has 3 teams, the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers that should be in the hunt. And the Bears are improving, I think. And when you look at the AFC North, you got with Joe Burrow back, even though they don't have a great defense, you have Cincinnati, you have Baltimore. But then you have Cleveland that has a big question mark at quarterback. And you have Pittsburgh that has a big question mark at quarterback. And so I think based on that, I would see the NFC North head-to-head having like in the 6, I guess they play 16 games, is it? So I would see them winning 9 or 10 out of the 16 games. There might be some upsets. And the only way that the AFC North could close the gap is if Pittsburgh and Cleveland significantly overperform expectations. Right now, Pittsburgh's only favored in 6 games. So anyway, that's where we're at with that question. I think the NFC North has the edge on the AFC North in 2025.
Don't stop there. Just another part.
Oh, the Giants and the Bears. Ooh. That's kind of an interesting question. I think the
that's why it's there.
When you look at their divisions, the disadvantage that the Bears have is they got 3 teams that are better than they are. Now they might win a couple of those, but they got an uphill battle. And then when you look at the Giants, they got the Redskins, or the Commanders, and then let's see what Dallas does. And you got the Eagles, so that's pretty tough competition. But I think the Bears, I think they got a tougher row to hoe. I would have to look at the schedule, but just thinking about it, I like the trajectory that the Bears were on. They kind of derailed there during the season, but at the beginning of the season, I thought they looked pretty good. If that quarterback can stay on track, I think I'll caveat it with I got to study their schedules a little bit closer, but I'll go with the Bears having the better record of the Giants in 2025.
Bill.
You're on mute.
Did I
okay. I guess I was muted. I didn't know I was muted. So the first thing is I also want to start with Jim Marshall. As some may know, I am part of a collective called Not in the Hall of Fame. And if you go to notinthehalloffame.com, you'll see the website. And I think he's number 37 on the list on the football side is Jim Marshall. And everyone cites the longevity and, of course, the wrong way, but he is the number one leader in the history for defensive linemen in fumble recoveries, right? He had 30 fumble recoveries. He, based on Jim Tunney and other work to sort of figure out his career sacks, has been credited with 130 and a half sacks. And while he could occasionally get sort of rolled up against the run game, and obviously if you saw, what the Raiders did to him, and to a certain extent what the Kansas City Chiefs did to him, and it was
Pittsburgh.
But I would say he's not that different from Fred Dean, right? Who has been in the Hall of Fame for quite some time. The big difference is Super Bowl, right? I mean, Fred Dean went to a team and won a Super Bowl. If somehow there was a trade, if we can go back in time, and Jim goes to Dallas, or Jim goes to, one of the teams that wins the Super Bowl, he's probably been in the Hall of Fame for 15 years, right? I mean, it's silly to me that something so beyond the player's control as getting to a team that wins the Super Bowl and being on the team when they win the Super Bowl would have such an impact on voting. It is truly disappointing because he was one of the best players at his position for a very long time. And while, as pointed out, maybe those last 3 or so years of his career, you didn't get the best of him. But still, that means he was consistently one of the best for, 15 years. Like, I don't know what to tell people. Like, most guys don't last 5. It's insane to me that he has not been inducted. And then I'm just going to say, in terms of records, and of course, there's all kinds of things we don't know about, what will happen. Teams that we think will be good will be bad. Things we think will be bad. Teams we think will be bad will be good. But if indeed Chicago is a team that is flirting with 500, they're an 8-9 or 9-8 team. I could easily see all the rest of the teams in the NFC North having winning records, especially if Chicago managed to get over that hump. While on the other side, I'm having trouble imagining a scenario where the Browns have a winning record. The Steelers will probably find a way to have a winning record, but probably no more than 9-8. And then let's say the Bengals have a bounce back year. Let's say they get to 11 wins. I could see the Ravens having 14 or 15 wins. So, taken as a group, I still think that leaves, even though there might not be a single team as good as the Ravens, as a group, I would give the edge to the NFC.
And
Oh, there's an and?
Giants Bears. I know you've been sitting there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's going to have the better record, the Giants or the Bears?
Oh, Giants are great. Oh, yeah. I'll be shocked if the Bears don't have more wins than the Giants for several reasons, but the most obvious one is that they are essentially 2 years further into the plan, right? The Giants are basically in year maybe 1 or at most year 2 of rebuilding, right? I mean, it wasn't supposed to be where they were supposed to be, right? They were supposed to be further down the line, but the original plan didn't work, right? They had to blow it up, at least in part because of the Daniel Jones situation where they extended him before he really proved that he was the answer at quarterback. So the Bears, by securing their quarterback of the future, that alone puts them, I'd say, at least one big step. And I like their defense much more than I like the Giants' defense. Once you get beyond Malik Neighbors, most of the other check marks in terms of skill position talent go to the Bears. I mean, the only place where, other than not having a receiver possibly as good as Malik Neighbors, I think every other thing that you would use to compare the two teams, the check mark goes to the Bears. And maybe coaching, maybe.
Will it be Jackson Dart versus Caleb Williams at quarterback?
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. I've heard good things about how Jackson Dart has looked, but I mean, you should really look good in these situations. Like, it's super concerning if you don't look good against no defense, right? I mean, you're essentially playing 7-on-7. Even when there is a defense on the field, it's not a real defense. There's no actual play call on defense, right? They're just going through stuff, working on things. I mean, it's if you're not at about 70% completion, you know, in in the situations which you've been in thus far as a quarterback, it is cause for concern. So you should look good, right? The offense has all of the advantages in the early days of rookie mini camps and OTAs.
Mr. Scott, we have, as you said, Mr. Jefferson. Uh, Last year, he set out OTAs to get that big check. Well, he got his payday, and now he's in, as you said, working out with Sam. The Vikings are ranked number 3 to get to the Super Bowl. Mr. Scott, are you pleased with the progress of your Vikings this year? Are they going to make it back to the AFC conference? I mean, the NFC conference.
Well, all roads ahead. I mean, it looks very good, full speed ahead. They gave the general manager a new contract, 3 years. So even though I've always been very suspect of his drafting, his acquiring players has been very good in the free agency and what have you. He's done a great job with that, building the team. I mean, he's gotten starters from different teams to come in and fill gaps with this team. So yeah, I think it looks real good. And then when I saw the quarterback and Jefferson in the front row cheering on the Timberwolves, and very good sign. Looks like they've already got a rapport going. And so it's an exciting thing. And again, I'm not going to go full bore Demetrius at this stage. I mean, as he would, he'd just go full bore. It's just. But I'm not going to do that. He's not here. So, I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to even mention the name anymore.
The man in blue.
But yeah, things look very good in the division. I think the Lions, they went as high as they could last year. They were exposed. Coach was exposed finally. Just going on 4th down in your own territory at the beginning of the game. That kind of strategy, is doomed to fail. And so they are talented now. They are very talented. So, but yeah, I'm looking, without being full born, who, that things are going to look very good for the Vikings this year. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually looking into some tickets. It's looking very interesting this year. I'm not going full born, who, but I mean, I'm thinking that things are looking very good.
Okay. Um, I'm going to try to get through my next conversation without mentioning you know who. Uh, so, uh, Dave, let's talk about some of the things that are happening with the Steelers. At first, I guess we thought the deal for Juju, Janu, excuse me, was kind of looked like it was going out the window. But now we have a season-ending injury to our tight end Parker. So there's a possibility that it might still be worth exploring. Uh, it it seems kind of funny to me how we rush to kind of replace these players, but we're in no rush when it comes to you know. But anyway, I said I wouldn't go there. Anyway, uh, TJ, he's hasn't got his deal yet, Dave. So he's skipping his OTAs for now. Uh, any interest in Will Levis? Maybe have we heard anything about anyone else other than the possibility of maybe a Kirk Cousins sighting? Uh, what's going on? I heard you guys had a very interesting talk Monday night, Dave. What were some of the thoughts that were expressed there?
Well, the team
Well,
can't be resuscitated. The team can't be resuscitated. I mean, these efforts now are just pounding, pounding, pounding.
I
It's
mean,
impossible.
last year they were only uh, they were only in the preseason only expected to win 6 out of their 17 games, according to the betting odds. So,
But I'm
we'll
betting
see.
on this year.
No, but the first thing is with with Parham. He was a free agent that they signed, big guy, 6'8", and
He's from the
it's a
Chargers,
possible.
right? He was
But
the guy from the Chargers out here, right? Their
I
backup.
think so. Yeah, and
And Washington before that, and was a all league player in the old AAF from Stetson, undrafted. Originally went there on a basketball scholarship.
yeah, but the thing is that he was going to be a role player with Fryermuth and Darnell Washington. And what this does is it just made Connor Hayward a little more relevant. Where now it looked like he was on the bubble of making the roster this year. Maybe he has a better shot. The thing with Jonnu Smith is that there was a lot of reporting that this was, I think Drew Rosenhaus is his agent, and that all the trade talks were being generated by Rosenhaus in order to generate interest in Smith. And so, but now all of a sudden it becomes, with this injury, it becomes a little more relevant. I'll be interested to see if Pittsburgh does make a play for him, simply because they don't need him. And do they want to have to give up that trade capital to do it? They might be able to look inside their current roster for somebody to step up, or to sign somebody that they don't have to expend any draft capital. TJ Watt skipping the OTAs, not a big deal. Let's see what happens with mandatory mini camp. He's looking at his contracts. His brother JJ was saying, "Hey, Pittsburgh should have extended him a year or two ago because he's now gonna be that much more expensive." We'll see. He's in his 30s. The Watt brothers they don't have longevity on their side. JJ kind of fell off drastically once he started to get hurt. So we'll have to see what happens with TJ here. I expect that Pittsburgh will sign him, might go into training camp. What he did the last time around is he had wasn't a sit out. I think they called it a sit in, where he actually came to camp to avoid being fined, but he was there, and that way he avoided being fined. And the fans were still able to see him. So we'll see what tactic he takes now. But I expect Pittsburgh to sign him sometime July or August. With Will Levis, I don't think that that's really a viable alternative for the same reasons that I talked about Doug Cousins. Levis is signed, I think, through 2026. What are they going to have to do what are they going to have to give up in order to get him? And again, the only reason that Pittsburgh is pursuing, and I'll use his name, Aaron Rodgers, it's all about 2025. It has nothing to do with 2026 and beyond. And I've said this repeatedly. What Pittsburgh is trying to do is they're trying to do two things at the same time. They're trying to build for the future, but they're trying to be as competitive as they can in 2025. And Aaron Rodgers, by their calculation, by other people's calculations, is their best shot for having a competitive team. Some people say that without Rodgers, the best that the Steelers could expect is 8 to 10 wins max, and probably not even that. With Rodgers, they feel that they could get 11 wins and maybe even a playoff win. So again, it all has to do with 2025, and not the thing with Aaron Rodgers is you don't have to expend any draft capital. You just have to pay him money. And so if Will Levis was in that situation, I think that they would make a play for him, but he's not in that situation. He's under a signed contract. So it's like, well, what is the other team going to demand in order to give him up? Same question comes up with Cousins. So I don't right now. I don't find Will Levis as a viable alternative, because again, they're not looking for somebody beyond 2025. They're just looking for somebody for 2025 to lead the team. And with the quarterback situation, now what they may do is, if they don't get Rodgers, they may try to sign a veteran backup quarterback to maybe Mason Rudolph. Maybe they will ride with Mason Rudolph. People that are talking about Will Howard, and I had a discussion about Will Howard.
I'm one of the ones to talk about Will Howard. I like Will.
If Pittsburgh really felt that he was a first-round talent, they would have drafted him in the first round. 32 teams did not pick him, did not feel that he was a first-round talent, a second-round talent, a third-round talent, or a fourth-round talent, and not even a fifth-round talent. And then finally, okay, well, then he was at a point where Pittsburgh said, hey, we can take a flyer on the guy. Now, maybe he'll be the next Tom Brady, but for 2025, don't expect that to be the case. I think that Pittsburgh's full intent will be exactly the same as they had for another rookie quarterback back in 2004 that was a first-round draft pick. They expect him to be the third-string quarterback to develop him in 2025. He's not the answer for 2025. Now, if he pans out, if he does, because of injuries, does get a chance to play and he surprises everybody, well then, hey, I would love that. But I don't think that the team would have drafted him well before the 6th round if there was any intent on having him start games by the end of the season. That I don't believe that that's the plan. What was the other question that you had here? There was another question.
No, I was asking you about Levis and TJ,
Okay.
and then we talked about Parker.
Could I make just one comment about what we
Sure.
just heard? Yeah, what we've just heard. It's like some of my old family would say something like, I see your mouth working, but I'm not hearing anything. I mean, I don't know. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a plan. And I mean, the soliloquy was, great. I mean, it was almost like, well, I don't want to mention that name again, but I see his mouth working, but I don't hear where they're going. They don't have
6 and 11. That's where they're going. 6 and 11.
Let me put it this way. It is one of the things that the team is suffering from is that they haven't had a losing season since 2023. Now, there was another chart out there that talked about when each NFL team, when was the last time that they were in the bottom 5 of the league in winning percentage? And every team except for 2, it was somewhere in the 2000s was the last time that they were in the bottom 5 of the league in winning percentage. Baltimore, the last time that they were in the bottom five was in 1996. Pittsburgh, the last time they were in the bottom five was in 1969. And so what that means is that they haven't had a shot at a top five pick in a long, long time. And so with the parity rules, because because of their philosophy of trying to be a competitive team every year, well, they're really fighting an uphill battle, and they've made miscalculations on some talent evaluations. In the case of Kenny Pickett, maybe they didn't. The thing is Kenny Pickett left. He asked to be traded. But the offensive line, and so they're suffering from that. So the only thing I can say is what they're doing now is they're trying to build for the future. They have a young offensive line. Their center and their one guard and their left tackle will be second-year players. Their right tackle, or excuse me, their right tackle will be a third-year player, and they have one guard that's Isaac Seumalo that's old. But the rest of the guys are very, very young. It's developing offensive line. They see that Cam Hayward, he's going to be gone after 2026. And they went out and they invested in the first-round defensive lineman, Derek Carmen. And so what they're doing is they're trying to build a roster so that when they do bring on their next quarterback, probably 2026, that he'll have some talent around him. And that takes patience. And at the same time, they're still trying to be competitive. They're not going like 4-13 or like every other team, including the Vikings, that have been at the bottom of the heap in the last few years.
That was going to be my next comment. Patience. Tom Thibodeau. Okay, Tom Thibodeau gets you to. He's gone. Okay, he's gone. He wakes up in the morning, he's gone. I mean,
when's the last time the Vikings won a Super Bowl?
Where does patience get you?
When's the last time the Vikings won a Super Bowl?
Well, that's a disjointed question
Joe?
to this conversation.
Mr. Scott, I'm slowly coming around to your point of view. It's a conspiracy to get rid of Mike Tomlin.
Conspiracy.
And he'll be gone. He'll be gone by 2027. And Omar Khan and this stupid ass drafting that he's been doing will do nothing but hinder the Steelers, just like keeping Big Ben for 2 years too long has done also. We are now looking at the demise of the Steelers for at least the next 5 to 8 years. At least that's my opinion. I'll be wearing a paper bag, but I'll still be a Steelers fan.
Well, it's very interesting to see the great tag team of JK3 and Dave. Great, maybe now they'll be going at it. The great tag team.
I see no sense in this, and I see no sense in Omar Khan keeping his job if Mike Tomlin is still going to be there.
Wow.
But
that's a
I don't understand what the connection is between Mike Tomlin's job and Omar Khan's job.
Because I don't think that Mike will stay there letting Omar Khan keep giving him this garbage for the next 5 to 10 years, however long he's going to be there. And Mike Tomlin's contract is up in what, 27? I don't think
you don't like the drafts that Omar Khan has been doing, or the trades that he's been doing.
No, not at all. And this pursuit of a tight end.
Which player don't you like that he drafted?
Let's see. What's the guy that can't play left or right tackle that we gave the rookie? He's only been there 2 years. What was his name?
Broderick Jones.
Yeah. I think that was a mistake. What have we done to fill in our secondary under Omar Khan, other than Joey Porter Jr.?
Deshaun Elliott.
And do you really think that we're going to have a winning
Joey
season
Porter.
this year? I said Joey Porter, but other than that, I mean, what holes have we filled? Like you said, we got a T.J. Watt. He's 30 some years old now. If we were going to pay him, we
Well,
should.
and they drafted Jack Sawyer, and they have Nick Herbig. And so, if you look at what they're doing, is they are they are getting people to in a position where, as people like Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt
down
transition out,
down the,
that they'll
down the
have
line.
talent coming in behind them.
Down the line to get, like you say, geared to win in 2026, 2027. They're not geared to win now. And I understand, that, if you're picking low, that, you're not going to have that, like trying to pick you know, a, a quarterback in the first, round when at 25 or 26, maybe even 18,
Well, I
but
mean, when you look at the defense, okay, they had an issue with their run defense on the interior of the line. So what did they do? They brought in Derek Harmon. They brought in Yaya Black. They brought in Jack Sawyer. They brought the guys
how
in.
long have we been trying to fix our offensive line? Since Big Ben.
Yeah, but Omar Khan
Since,
wasn't.
since
He
did
wasn't
you
the
not
general
just said
manager then.
since Big Ben?
Yeah, but if you're talking about Omar Khan, this is only his third draft.
But that's because now he's the face. This is not Omar Khan's first rodeo. He has not just been sitting behind the sidelines for the last 3 years, just waiting to take a. He has had input. Omar Khan has had input just as much, maybe not just as much, but I would say more than Mike Tomlin or some of the other coaches. Even 3 years ago, before he was named GM.
Well, he's been there for 20 years.
And
He's been there longer than Ben was.
I put the blame solely at it has to be one of the two. It has to be either Mike or it has to be Omar. Or both. Maybe that's not the right mix for us. Maybe we need to go, maybe it is time for us to change up. Maybe that's not the right mix. I don't know what the solution is, but it does not seem that we are being set up for success either now or in the future. And that's just my opinion as a
Yeah,
guy
no,
that's
that's
a
fine.
Steelers fan for 70 years.
Yeah, but if you look at their track record, they're the only team. They go back to like the 1990s, the last time that they finished last in their division. I mean, they've just always remained competitive. And with Mike Tomlin, there's not been a single season where they've gone to the end of the season where there's been every game meant something where they could make the playoffs. Even when they had Duck Hodges playing quarterback, they finished 8-8, but they went to the final game of the season and had a shot at making the playoffs. They're a competitive team,
I think
and
I
they're
just
due. They're due for a losing season.
do. I mean,
Overdue.
does that
Yeah,
does that mean that we have to be satisfied as fans with failure because we're overdue to have a losing season? Come on, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We don't expect to have that. That's not why we follow the Steelers. We're not the
Well,
Carolina Panther fans. We're Steeler fans. We got some pride here. Come on,
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
The
So
last
we
time
haven't had a
being
losing
bottom five.
season.
So we're the Vikings on here.
well, see,
They
now,
go back a while.
this is,
I'm not talking as
it's
a
very,
Vikings fan.
very
I'm
interesting
talking as a
watching this
Steeler
breakdown.
fan.
Very interesting watching this breakdown where it's just falling apart. There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm still waiting to see. 2011 was the last time the Vikings were in the bottom five.
Yeah. Hey, like I
Detroit,
said,
it was 2021. They
hey,
were bottom five.
How many coaching changes since then?
I,
You
I'm
know,
I
that's
am not a fan of any of those
Quite a
teams.
few.
I'm only
yeah.
the
So I
fan with the
mean, yeah.
Steelers. So anyway, Bill, you've been kind of quiet back there, slowly taking in everything. Bill, why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening, my man?
Okay. Well, first of all, it is good to be back. But as I may have mentioned briefly, this past holiday weekend during Memorial Day weekend, which is has in the past for me been a rather somber occasion, was instead a rather joyous one as I became engaged to be married, and now have begun planning for what that means for the rest of my life. We are not meant to go through this life alone, and I was married previously. I know some of the things that lay await. I know, lay in the future. I know it's not going to be easy, but it's certainly worth doing. All of us, hopefully, have someone. I know that Dave has Sue. I don't know enough about Mr. Scott's situation to comment. And I imagine James is out there, probably probably balancing a few things, probably keeping some plates spinning. But if you have the opportunity to find that person who is your person and spend the rest of your life with them, that's a chance you have to take, no matter what has happened in your past. I am very pleased, very honored, very humbled by the opportunity to be a husband once more, and I look forward to it. That is my final thought.
Hey, once again, congratulations. We have Don getting married on the June 14th, is it?
Yep. Yeah, he's getting married soon.
Yeah. So, Dave, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I'll go back to Monday night. Yeah, we have our every Monday night on we have our Steelers town hall on the Clubhouse app, and it's primarily all Steelers fans. That we just chat. Usually 6 or 7 of us are chatting any given Monday evening. Well, this past Monday, a guy came on and he had never been on before, but he kind of was like questioning us about, well, why are Steelers fans accepting mediocrity?
See?
Why should Steelers fans? He was questioning. Why are you so accepting of this team? That's been so mediocre, and it's kind of like, what? And really, and it's like, we started. Yeah, I mean, we've not won a playoff game in a very long time. And as it turned out, he was a troll. He was a Patriots fan. It turned out, and it was kind of interesting. But what occurred to me and several other people, that I talked to on the town hall is, are we fans only because the Steelers have won 6 Super Bowls? And is that the only thing that drives us to be Steelers fans? And the conclusion that we came to was no. I mean, we like the organization, we like the team, we like the principles that they've shown over the years. And you can go all the way to the 1950s with Lowell Perry, before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was ever signed, and Art Rooney with no fanfare, no publicity, and he wasn't doing it because of the color of this player's skin. But Lowell Perry he was a rookie, was demolished on the field. He was tackled by Rosie Greer and several other players. He was having a phenomenal year. Busted up his femur, dislocated his hip. He didn't walk. He was hospitalized for several months. They didn't know whether he was going to be able to walk anymore. Well, what Art Rooney said is, hey, we'll make you a coach. And he became the first African-American coach ever in the NFL. The only other coach that you could point to before that was back in the 1920s. And he was a co-head coach. And Lil Perry, not only that, even afterwards, he had gone to school in Michigan. I think his dad was a dentist, but he became first African-American assistant coach in the NFL. Then they had him announcing games, first African-American to be announcing games. And then what happened was he wanted to go back to law school. He started out in Pittsburgh, but he went back home to Michigan. So the Rooneys paid him to be a scout so that he could go to school in Michigan, still have money to pay for his schooling. And he got his degree. He went to work for the auto industry, set records there, all these first-time records. And then Richard Nixon appointed him the EEOC. And here's a guy that the team supported all these years. And so, really, when I think about it is, do I want my team to win? Yeah, all fans want their team to win, but only one can win. And when I say win, there's only one thing that I mean by that. That's the Lombardi. If you don't win the Lombardi, well, then you've lost, right? You either didn't make the playoffs, or if you made the playoffs, your last game of the year was a loss. But that's not why we're Steelers fans. It's because we believe in the organization. And by and large, most Steelers fans don't jump around between teams. And I'm originally from Pittsburgh. Our family moved away from Pittsburgh in 1965, and I still hold an affinity for Pittsburgh, not Washington. I've lived in Washington since 1965. I've never owned or worn any Washington Redskins regalia, any of that, because that wasn't my team. And so my last thought is, and not all fans are alike. Some fans, they want to go for the winner. They'll jump from team to team, or they'll have a player that they kind of follow the player to the league. But by and large, for me, it's like, hey, if you have a team, support them to the hilt. Win, lose, or draw, support them, respect them, as long as that organization is respectful. And it's like, I kind of look at this troll that came onto our town hall Monday night, and he didn't want to talk about, well, first of all, the Patriots finishing 4-13 the last 2 years, or how patient are you going to be? How many years are you going to wait before the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl? And it's like, well, as long as it takes. And it's like, well, there's your answer. That's why we're Steelers fans, and we'll remain Steelers fans. And as long as it takes for them to get back to the Super Bowl. And I caveat it with, as long as it's a respectful organization. Not all NFL organizations are the same. There are different organizations that are better run, and I think are better principled than others. And I think from the comments that we made about Jim Irsay earlier, I didn't really know much about him, and I especially looked at what the players had to say, and he sounds like a guy that if I were a Colts fan, I would be proud to be a Colts fan, because of what he represents, not what his dad represented, because his dad kind of abandoned the ball. His dad's legacy is leaving Baltimore in the middle of the night, leaving them high and dry. And I think that the son tried to make up for that with Indianapolis to prove that, hey, we're here and we're here to stay. So that's my final thought. Have your team, stick with them through thick or thin, and unfortunately, we can't control all of those circumstances. But what we can control is whether we continue to support the team, especially when they're down, and that's what I'm prepared to do.
Mr. Scott, before I give you the last word, I would like to, as you mentioned, the organization there, Dave, I would like to thank the organization for telling the fans that those were the actions of a few that were not backed by the organization itself. So that
I don't know what you're
that's
talking
not
about.
what I'm talking about is when Rocky Blyer and Mason Rudolph chose to give 47 their jerseys.
Yeah, same
For
thing like when Obama got his Steelers jersey.
wait, now, I said that the Steelers came out and said that those were the actions of those particular gentlemen. It had nothing to do with the organization. And so I didn't want to get into the politics of it because everybody knows how I feel about 47. But I do thank the organization for making out a statement that they did not necessarily back the actions of those individuals, but they also came out and said that what those individuals did was a matter of their taste. So I commend the Steelers for defending the players, but also defending the actions of the organization. Mrs. Scott, you want to take us on?
Oh yeah, yeah. Just a couple of comments. I'm congratulating Bill, and I was married over 40 years, and my wife got pancreas cancer, and it was the most awful period of my life. Never watched anything because we got married. I knew her my whole life. I used to walk by her house going to school every day. She's in the 4th grade. I'm in the 8th grade. And she's walking this way. I'm walking that way. She's born in the hospital the same time as my brother Walter. They went to school together in every room through the 12th grade. So she knew my brother like her brother. And so, watching that pancreas thing, I'm telling you, man, it was just, I've never been through it. I thought when my mom went, I'd never feel like that again. But man, this was, and what it did to the boys, just terrible, just terrible. But, when I've had opportunities, and I still have opportunities, but, it's a different ball game now. And so, grandkids and the kids, everybody's doing good. So, it's all good. With the nonprofit, I got a business that I run out of the house, doing good. I can go anywhere I want to, do anything. And so, God will take care. Things around in the shape. I do music still. I do at a church. I play, and there's a lot of good friends there. So I enjoy that. And then my final thing, I guess, is I know we've talked about Jim Marshall, but when I look at Johnny Randall when he went in, Johnny Randall was a great player, played 12 years, loved Johnny Randall. But when he went in, it was like there was no question about that, John Randall, and I'm like, yeah, he's very, very good. And then Jared Allen just went in. I'm like, he's a good player, played 12 years. But still, when I look at Jim, like I say, and I guess some of it is going through all those camps with all those players, Charlie West and Ursel McBee and Chuck Vaughn, and knowing all those guys, and being at the barbershop and talking to Chuck Foreman, me and my brother. My brother said, Chuck, what happened with the Pittsburgh? What happened in that game? And he just scratched his head and said, there wasn't nowhere to go. And so, you get a chance to see how they felt about the game. And I just said, there wasn't nowhere to go. I think he got all of 10 or 12 yards in that game, So, but that's my final thoughts. I think that, with Marshall, it's a sad thing. And I guess all you can do now, maybe he will posthumously get into the Oh, and maybe that would be good for his family. Maybe his family would enjoy that. So we'll just let that go and let see what comes next.
All right. Well, hey, Mr. Scott, who you got? Who you got in the finals?
Boy, I was really trying to stick with the West, but I'm liking what I see of Indiana. I'm liking what I see of in Indiana. So that's where I'm going. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. What about you?
I like them young boys out of OKC. I'm thinking the Brooms, but I'll take 5. I don't think it's going to go 7.
Oh wow! So you're getting like who on us? Then we're not. Well, we're
No,
not
no,
going to
no,
mention
no,
that
no, no,
name,
no,
so we're
no,
not.
no. I'm a Steelers fan. I'm not, the diehard. I'm just a fan that don't like to see us lose. I don't want to be a New Orleans Saints fan. I don't want to walk around for a couple of years with a paper bag on my head. But but that on the, as I was explaining before you guys came on the air, you see, I had to add a piece to my Steelers shrine there. That's called a dream catcher. So, so hopefully my Steelers will catch a few dreams, and I pray for a 9-8 season. I would welcome a 9-8 season. I don't see it happening, but I'm looking forward to it. So, guys, hey, thank you so much for joining me as every Wednesday night. I appreciate everybody's time. Looking forward to it. And Mr. Scott, I'll see you Monday along with Don and some of the other guys. We'll have a different show about the Justice Department. Dave likes to kind of listen in on us every once in a while. I'll send Dave a link and he can hear our conversation.
Yeah, very
Bill,
interesting things going on up here. Very interesting things.
right?
Very.
I'm hoping to get us a lawmaker from Michigan also. Bill, I hope that you'll be able to attend. You told me you'll let me know this weekend. So,
Correct. Yep. Yes, I should be able to let you know this weekend. I think I'll be available.
okay. Dave, the discussion is going to be, is your neighborhood safer now that the DOJ has given up police reform as pertaining to, this Minneapolis, Louisville, some of the other cities. So that'll be our topic. Thank
Giving
you.
up police reform or putting in police reform?
Excuse me?
Giving up on police reform or putting in police reform?
No, they've cut out the funding
Yep.
for police
Oh,
reform. Yeah.
And I'll just
So,
say one more thing on that. One more thing. My mother told all of us growing up, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You just try to do right. So whether they got their kick degrees, whether they got everything, they still need to do their jobs. It says protect and serve. And that's what they need to do.
I'm looking forward to our discussion on Monday. So everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the finals, which start tomorrow. And let's keep up with what's going on with our teams individually. I'm looking forward to some of these matchups. Mr. Scott, see you guys against Joe Burrow and Lamar. Lamar Jackson should have some great matchups.
We
We'll
should.
see.
After 3 or 4 games, you never know. I might go full bore, and you know who. You never know. We'll just see how it goes.
All right, guys. Have a great one, man. Enjoy everybody's company tonight. Have a good one.
take care. See you guys next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah.